But real quick, I guess, because I gotta drop for a little bit. But there is a trade I wanted to get some thoughts on, because I know when we were talking about the Hunter move, love that for the Cavs. Like, I do think that's a real threat, or makes them closer to a stronger threat to the Celtics. A move that I thought kind of went the opposite and just reeked of desperation was the Bucks and Wizards trade yesterday with Middleton and Kuzma. And I mean, I get Middleton's knees are kind of shot. He's there one night, he's not there the next, but it's one of those moves to me where it's the chemistry that Middleton gave you, like, is still better than whatever availability Kuzma might give you over Middleton, and Middleton's a better shooter. So I don't know. That's one of those trades where I mean, the Bucks, I feel like I've always had a healthy respect because they have Dame and Giannis, right? So you kind of have a certain level. Middleton, for me, ever since they made the Dame for Drew swap, that was the key to that trade, is if Middleton was going to be the Middleton that used to kill the Celtics, he was the guy that could go kind of toe-to-toe with JB, if we're being really honest, several years ago, not certainly not the last like 2 years or so. But that Middleton was like, okay, them plus Dame and everything else, that's a thing. But Middleton never got healthy until both of them were hurt in the playoffs last year, and then immediately had double ankle surgery. And now he's been, not himself at all here since he's gotten back. But Kuzma for Middleton, it reminds me a little bit of Celtics way back in the day here when we traded Perk for Jeff Green. It was like, listen, Jeff Green was the better talent, but the Perk continuity and the chemistry, that was the better option at that time. Like, no doubt Jeff Green was the better talent. Kuzma here versus Middleton, I think it's pretty equal, but then you lose the chemistry. I don't know. That's a move to me that just screams that Giannis might not be a Buck in about a year and a half. That's what that move told me. But I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on that before I got to drop off.
That trade's it's honestly interesting. Like you said, I mean, Middleton's one of those guys that the last several years, I mean, he really hasn't provided much. And even when he was, honestly kind of like a Celtic killer, he hit every single three he'd shoot against us. That's really all he gave, right? I mean, Middleton, he's kind of like the typical three and D, but no D. So it's just three. And the last couple of years, he's given nothing. And I think if you're Washington, you go out and you kind of take a chance on a guy like Middleton. Maybe he'll get his legs under him a little, and he won't turn into a Joel Embiid where he can't play for another 2 weeks after an injury. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of those.
You know what this move screams to me? This move screams how, because this is like, when we have a guy like Middleton, there's no market for Khris Middleton anymore, right? Like you've waited too long to move him. It was probably signing him to that extension in the offseason, I think was a move where it's like, okay, we can't lose this guy for nothing. He's going to get dealt at the deadline. So I think this move is just like, how can we stay relevant? Is there anything out there that can kind of keep talent on this team right now while staying relevant without completely and don't completely lose out? Because I think like Kuzma, he's good enough, right, where he can fill it from a talent aspect, he can fill a void, but he doesn't bring the unique, because Middleton's savvy, man. Like, he's been in the league a while, he kind of gets it. In terms of getting you a bucket, he's still there. He's honestly a very underrated playmaker when the ball is in his hands. So I do think you lose out on that aspect. I think you get a little bit from Kuzma. I think they get a little bit more size, a little bit more spacing. The
size and availability. He's having the worst shooting season of his entire career this year. So that's right. That's a tough
58% from the line. He is a
it's bad.
He's done. Seriously.
I mean, 28% from three as well. Like it's pretty brutal for Kuzma this year.
I don't see that move being a needle threading move for this team who has had such a I would label it horrific start. They've definitely come back down to earth a little bit, put together a very solid stretch with some easier opponents winning games that they should have won. But I think when you take a look at the whole Khris Middleton thing, yes, and Rob, we always say it on the show, the best ability is availability, and Khris Middleton has not been an availability guy, especially come playoff time when the Bucks really need him the most. And so I definitely think you're getting the availability with Kyle Kuzma for sure. But this isn't a move where I'm sitting here as a Boston fan, and I've seen some very tough emotions with this trade incoming from Bucks fans, where they're not too pleased with this. And essentially, you look at the culture of the Milwaukee Bucks and that championship team. Drew Holiday was already traded away. Khris Middleton already traded away. Brook Lopez, if you guys don't remember, Brook Lopez was on his way to Houston last free agency until the Milwaukee Bucks kind of swooped back in and matched the deal. And I think thank you very much, Will, for joining us. Thank you. I just think the culture standpoint of the Milwaukee Bucks in championship contending spirits is essentially gone. You still have Giannis. I think it's not fully gone as long as Giannis is on the team. But I think that championship kind of continuity is out the door for sure.
The window's gone definitely for
the Bucks. I do think it's closed, and I will say it's very cracked because I will stand by saying as long as they have Giannis,
right? Exactly.
That window will always stay open, just like with the Celtics. Once it does come time to picking and choosing contracts with KP and Drew, and obviously Al's going to be retiring, I don't think the championship window will be fully closed as long as you have Tatum and/or Brown. I do think the window will be open, but for the Bucks, and guys, remember this is something that I did bring up last trade deadline with the Milwaukee Bucks was this Bucks team is getting older, guys. Like we're going to start seeing some real moves. And now that Holiday's gone throughout the offseason, Khris Middleton's now gone. Obviously, Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton have been on the trade block for quite some time. I'd be very shocked if both those guys are still on this roster by 3 p.m. today. It's definitely the culture in Milwaukee is not what it was even last year. And that Kyle Kuzma move, even for Bucks fans, they know that was not the best of moves that they could have done this deadline.
Justin, what are you talking about culture of last year? Because I didn't see any culture in the Bucks last year.
Good to see you again
whatsoever. I mean, for real, last year was horrendous for the Milwaukee Bucks in every aspect of that season. I mean, when you hire Doc Rivers halfway through the season. You go and first of all, they messed up by firing Mike Budenholzer last year. And I understand he kind of ran his course in Milwaukee in terms of being the head coach there. And he probably would have been out of there in 2021 if the Bucks didn't win the championship that season. And ultimately, they did make a mistake, the Bucks, giving away Mike Budenholzer because Mike Budenholzer, he was just a good head coach. Okay, he was a quality head coach. Whatever you want to say about his motivation behind the scenes, or did he run his course in Milwaukee? Well, ultimately, Mike Budenholzer was still a tremendous, phenomenal X's and O's head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, and they still had a chance in 2022. In 2023, they were also the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, upset in the first round by the Miami Heat. But then they go and hire Adrian Griffin, who's just a complete disaster there because the team just didn't quite like him. I mean, Adrian Griffin wasn't a liked head coach in the locker room. I mean, it might not have been anything that he did in the X's and O's standpoint, but the players certainly weren't enjoying him, whether it was Bobby Portis, Damian Lillard, or Giannis. But we all know the mistake, too, was trading Drew Holiday to the Portland Trailblazers and then indirectly to the Boston Celtics for Damian Lillard last year. I think that would just completely blew up anything the Bucks had in terms of chances of winning the championship. But now it's just going far and far away because last year I think the Bucks they took themselves out of it in terms of contending again. Now you could say Giannis is there, always one of the best players in the league, but if you don't have the assets and players around Giannis Antetokounmpo to actually go out there and compete, well, they're not actually going to compete because we see the NBA is a lot better nowadays. You can't just pair up a big three, or you can't just rely on one superstar to do everything like you could in the 2010s or even the 2000s. It really is a very saturated league nowadays in terms of the talent everywhere. But this trade for the Milwaukee Bucks, I really think that they were trying to get rid of Middleton's money in a sense. And I think that, see, this is where I believe that this trade in particular, Kuzma is really the only thing you could get for Khris Middleton. And I don't think Middleton, I just didn't see the impact there with the Milwaukee Bucks. And for me, the Wizards, Middleton going to the Wizards now, they're saying, oh, we're going to keep Middleton because he's he's going to be mentoring the young guys. Well, what about Malcolm Brogdon? What about Jonas Valanciunas this year? I mean, they haven't been able to do anything in terms of mentoring the young guys. They've had 2 different 16-game losing streaks this season. The Wizards have, and right now their record is putrid, and they have 7 wins on the year. Well, guess what? 3 of those are against the Charlotte Hornets. So it really paints a picture of how bad the Wizards are at this moment in time. And I don't think Middleton's going to do too much mentoring that's going to mean anything there, because Middleton's also been a player in the past that maybe he's learned in his NBA career, but it's also he's been a player that hasn't always given the best example of how to go in and practice hard and play hard. And even during the Bucks championship runs or even their playoff runs, it was a conversation that Middleton didn't always get after it within games. But now, coming off double ankle surgery, Middleton isn't impactful to me anymore, and I really do believe the Bucks were trying to get rid of his money, and Kuzma is really the only thing that you can farm for Middleton's money at this point in time. So the Bucks, for as weird as this trade maybe looks on the outside for a lot of people, I actually think they did an okay job in their return of potentially just giving away Khris Middleton, because if Kuzma isn't out there, they potentially just give away Khris Middleton for next to nothing. And now Kuzma, I think we forget that Kuzma, he can be an impact player. He's not going to be a big 3-piece or anything for the Milwaukee Bucks. He's not going to be a needle mover for Milwaukee and them going and competing for a championship. But at the same time, I see Kuzma as a player that we've kind of forgotten about since he was traded to the Washington Wizards from the Los Angeles Lakers, because he did make an impact on that 1920 championship team with the Lakers. Now, of course, that team had LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they were super talented. KCP, Rajon Rondo, Dwight Howard, all those assets, or really all those players were on that squad. And now Kuzma, he is. We saw a quote come out from Kuzma a couple weeks ago, how he wasn't trying to fit in with the Washington Wizards, and look at that.
What the hell?
Celebration time, folks. It's celebration. The Bucks are done. The Bucks are done in the East. It's all Celtic time now. But how about this?
What setting do you have on?
Hey, there we go. There we go. Wait,
what else can you do?
Maybe we can do one of these too.
Yeah, he doesn't know. I don't think he knows. I don't know what setting he has on.
Can I get the balloons? Some people know what I'm talking about out here. The balloons.
But
I don't know.
Can I ship